Good afternoon. Okay, now we have people in the crowd. Cool. Thank you for spending time in this last session. Thank you, Swami. Thank you, Nitin, for spending time with us. I think that I personally was very, very excited of this session. Not only talks about success, but it talks about the people. Talks about the things behind success. I guess a lot of you are looking to be successful, and this is kind of a business occasion, but a lot of things that we do in life lead us to be successful in our business because we are endorsing and we are adopting things also in life. We're here to be inspired by Nitin and Swami. So why don't you take a minute or two to introduce yourself and tell this very unique thing that you do in your personal life.
Thank you, Amnon. Good evening, everyone. I know it's the last session, but we'll try and make it as interesting as possible. My name is Swami. I work at CRED, call myself an enabler. We don't have titles at CRED. That's one of our values is not to have title and have non-hierarchical openness in the way you think. At CRED, I run tech, data, infosec, risk compliance ops. I run HR talent, customer support and operations, bunch of things, all the operating functions. Besides work, I'm also part of a band called Agam. Thank you. Agam, as a band, we play a genre called Carnatic Progressive Rock. It's a bit of metal rock, infused with Carnatic music, which is from the southern side of India. It's a classical form of music, thousands of years old. So I've been playing with the band for the last 17, 18 years now. Roughly would have played about 700 to 800 live shows across the world, US, India, UK, and that's very briefly about me.
Cool, very cool. Nitin.
Thank you, Amnon. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. And thank you, Sanjay, for convincing me to come on stage and tell this small part of my life. But just for introductions, I'm Nitin Chopra. I'm currently working with RPSG Group. It's a big conglomerate based out of Kolkata. I sit out of Delhi. There's a part of the media part of the business which I'm taking care of. And prior to that, I've had stints at a few organizations around product and sales and go-to-market. I think the reason I'm here is obviously not to talk about my work, but a few things I do outside work and a few things that definitely fuel me to do better both in professional and my personal life. And the journey I'm going to share today and maybe talk a little bit more about is how I actually became a triathlete full-time along with my job, and that how that fuels me to be a better person every day, try and do the best for my team, for myself, for my family, and how does this shape me as an individual. I think that's the kind of a bit I'm very excited to share today for the first time. In parts, I've probably spoken to a few of my close friends, but today is the first opportunity I'm going to talk about this in an open forum. So thank you for having me here.
Beautiful. Thank you for allowing us to hear a story. So, success, it's a big word, but it has different facets. It involves mental strength, emotional strength, physical strength. And success can be dictated by society, or it can be something that I define myself. In some cases, success is achieving the end result. And to some people, success is the journey towards whether or not you achieve the end result. So what basically is success and how do you define it? And it's very, very personal. This is something that I've learned throughout my career, both on the personal side and professional side. So let me ask you this. What's success to you? Start with Swami.
Success, as you mentioned, is very, very internal to me. When I started, I grew up in a very middle-class family when I grew up in a small town called Coimbatore. Over a period of 50 years, a lot of things changed. And if I sort of break this journey into sort of phases, like every decade, what success meant kept changing, right? And I've reflected about it. I think in the first few phases, it was all about validation. It's about external validation. I think in the last a decade or so, I think once you cross certain milestones of, for example, financial independence, or you're very sure about yourself, I think it's sort of moved into a zone where it's about how I feel about something every day. Um, it's it's been a journey which keeps changing every year, and but a sense of gratification that you feel that doesn't change. I mean, and it does not entirely depend on how others feel, or how what it validation, or what milestones, or what awards, or anything, right? I think that has been my true reflection of that. Just I'll probably take 30 seconds to sort of explain this. I'm a big fan of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I really sort of moved from physical to emotional needs to safety needs, and at some point I crossed to belonging needs, where I said, I need to be part of something, I need to be part of something big. Then I sort of moved into esteem needs, saying, I need to achieve this, I need to, stand out in the crowd. To, in the last few years, a lot more into aesthetics, right? It's about creation, it's about craft, it's about getting lost yourself in doing something that you really love, right? To, I'll say, actualization, where you're able to see success in others, you're able to contribute, right? I think that has been the evolution. And I would say, whilst there are times you will sort of switch between different layers, but largely in the top 3 4, from esteem to, I would say, actualization, is where I'm sort of internalizing and reflecting on success.
Amazing. Maybe I can ask the same question to you. What's success to you?
Okay, not a very preachy answer, but I think for most part of my life, I think my ambition and drive are my biggest strengths. I thrived in setting goals and crushing them and moving from one mile to another. I think the success equation was, for me, was only one-sided, was the reward of success, and I never measured cost of success. I think at least that has changed for me now. It's no longer about milestones. I don't need self-validation from any milestone. I don't move from one milestone to another to validate if I'm doing well in life or not anymore. I think success for me now is the journey, because I've really started to enjoy the journey. Journey has its own plateaus, and that's what has helped me build my mental framework and a lot of other things to kind of go through the journey. And I think milestone is just incidental. I look back to see if how much I've gained in that journey. So I think that is my success, to put myself on hard journeys and come out to reflect back that, yes, I've grown. That's how I define.
We had an early talk, and I couldn't help, or maybe you saw Nitin with his beautiful son, and you told me a story about how do you develop and how do you invest in your young son that doesn't understand things, and you inspire him. Maybe you can share the story.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, very close to my heart, that was my son. And in fact, he's my elder boy. I have 2 boys. Actually, a lot of my changes and the reason I'm actually talking here is because of the story which started by my conversation with my son, Viraj. So this is 2022, and I kept pushing my son to kind of learn swimming. And he was just not into sports. He was coming out of COVID. A lot of COVID kids just want to sit at home, gaming, and just all that stuff. And one day he tells me, Papa, you keep pushing me to learn swimming, but you don't know how to swim yourself. I was like, okay, the guy is getting his voice, and he's right. I don't know how to swim at all. So I spoke to my wife. I said, I think he's fair. I just can't be hypocritical about it. If I don't know myself something, how can I just keep pushing him to find that discipline to learn a new skill? So she said, what are you going to do? I said, okay, let me think. And I came back with a bizarre idea. I said, okay, I want to do something which inspires him. And there is a sport called Ironman, which was coming to India for the first time in 2022, November. And on my son's birthday on 5th of April, I signed up for my first Ironman. I have never swam in my life. I hadn't cycled for about 20 years, and I hadn't run for last couple of years before I signed up. So I had basically about 5 odd months to learn and show up and come out alive. And I'm based out of Delhi. It's not like we have a sea there to practice. And we don't have that kind of infrastructure where either it's too hot, it's too cold. And on top of this, we were expecting a second child. So my wife was obviously in her own space. I said, but I'm going to do this. And I started my first swim session on 6th of April. I showed up and I couldn't swim 25 meters for about the whole of April, May, and June. I could not do more than 100 meters at a stretch. This engine just didn't work. On demand, I just could not find the air, and I kept stopping in this pool. I used to call the wall the procrastination wall, where I kept standing at the start of the pool looking at others swimming. They didn't even look like athletes, but they just could make it work for them. And I used to come back every night and I'd tell my wife in the morning, you know what, I don't want to go swimming. And she's like, I've never seen you anxious about sports. And my background is sports. I played football and basketball kind of professionally when I was younger. But I just had lost that. I was anxious. I was like, how am I going to do this? She said, okay, just show up. I said, okay, I'll show up every day. Let's see. 4 months, I could not swim. And I was devoting nearly 70% because you start with swimming in Ironman. So I did a half Ironman, which was 70.3. This is 2 kilometers of swimming, followed by 90 kilometers of cycling, followed by 21 kilometers of running. It's a technical sport. You have to finish in some time, and you get disqualified if you don't meet the time guidelines. A lot happened in that time, and there was, there's a little backstory, but the reason I'm going to share this is it was what it was. We had a baby. My wife got COVID again during her pregnancy. My mother had a little bit of a accident. My eldest son got dengue. Nearly for 2 months, I could not practice a single day. Right after my second son's birth, 2 weeks later, my wife said, weren't you supposed to go and practice and do Ironman? I said, yeah, but it's only 50 days left. I don't even know how to swim more than 100 meters. She says, you know what? Go sleep in another room. I'll manage the little one. Try it out. You still have 52 days precisely. Go out and see what you can do. My son was born on 7th of September. Until about end of September, I hardly slept. I showed up in Goa, by the way. I did. And I was very fatigued. The first time I saw the sea was on the day of the swim. And I jumped in the sea with absolutely no confidence whether I'll come alive or not. It's a huge, 1,000 people jumping to the sea. It was full wrestling match inside. I mean, one is how to swim. You've never seen the sea. And there are 1,000 people also who are kicking you every time you try to get out of that crowd. Anyway, so long story short, I did come out of it. I didn't die. I did finish. It was hard. It was 40 degrees heat. I took just about 7 odd hours to finish the race. I think I never felt more depleted in my life from a body composition standpoint till that day. But I came out and I thought that was the best thing that I did, because the moment I went back, and that's the picture, my son welcomed me by drawing that welcome. And the reason I share that story is because since that day, my son has been consistent in swimming every week, and he's a really good swimmer now. And hopefully, if he's good enough, maybe he can swim states at some point. So for me, it was a very fulfilling journey where I led by example, and I could kind of inspire someone who's most important to me in my life.
Amazing. So this is like from 0 to 100. It's not just about swimming. It's just doing all the way to Ironman, which is an extreme sport. Yeah. But it feels to me that it was just this moment in time of taking a decision. So going back to you, when did you decide to co-found the band and invest time in this?
A little bit of backstory, and it's sort of a very defining moment in my life. Until I was 29, I did not know how to play keyboard. I'm not formally trained. In fact, I picked up interest in music much later in life. I got married in 2003, and around 2005, my wife said, "Why don't you pick up something, pick up some hobby, and do something?" She said. I said, "Sure." And my sister was coming from US. I said, "Hey, can you get me a keyboard on your way back to India?" So she got me a keyboard. That's when my story started. Then I said, "I'm going to learn keyboard," and went to a place to learn. They were like 20, 25 kids there, and a lot of noise, and I had to wait for my turn, right? I got very frustrated, and then I said, like, how do I learn? I'm not able to focus, and I said, okay, I'm going to learn myself. So I stopped going there, and from 2005, that's when I got the keyboard. I started, downloading notes and videos. Those days internet used to be very slow, but painfully I will download, print some of that, and started practicing myself. I self-taught myself, and that's how it started. And I met Harish, and actually there was a person called Ganesh. He was the drummer for Agam, and Harish is the lead singer. Whether Harish and I work at CRED. Harish leads design and marketing, and he's the lead singer in the band. And I met them in 2005. One day I was just sitting and jamming, and it was probably like 6, 7 months into learning keyboard. I had a tune and I had a lyrics in the regional language of Tamil. I've never written. I'm not like formally taught in studying literature or anything. It just happened, and it was a song for my son had just born, and I wrote this song, and I called Harish and said, "Do you want to sing?" And Harish said, "Sure, let's go." And those days used to be analog recording. We didn't have digital recording. Very painful way of recording music. We got the song, gave it to my wife. I thought I will impress her with that. But we also put the song out in blog, and we got good feedback about that. And then I did few more songs, started writing more. I never knew I could write. Since then I've written probably about 50, 60 songs, lyrics, and also composition, but I never knew I could do that. So that was a realization. But I still used to struggle to understand theory of music and playing. Joined a small band in the company with the drummer, and that's how the journey started. In 2007, there was a reality show announced, and A.R. Rahman is a 2 times Oscar winner, is a legend, and he's a music director. So he architected that show in a regional language channel, and we said, why don't we just try entering the show? So that's when we got the band formed, and of course Harish, Ganesh, and then we said, oh, we need a guitarist, we need a bassist, we need a drummer. So we sort of got the band together in 2007. We enrolled for that. We went to the reality show, and we went to quarterfinals. Then we were picked as a wildcard entry for semifinals. We lost in semifinals. But then in the end, Rahman said, no, I'm going to announce 6 bands as winners, because we can't have one winner, because I see potential in all of them. And he actually announced as one of the winners. So that was like a big turning point. Another thing that happened is we went and met Rahman that time, and he asked who wrote the lyrics for this song that we played. I said, no, I wrote. Is there anything, did I do anything wrong? I was thinking. But he said, no, maybe sometime we'll work together. So I was like, that was a very defining moment for me. I said, like, okay, now I think I can do something. I think I need to believe myself more. Learning is also right. I think today I do the same thing with at work, where I look for people, look for sparks, and say that we need to invest, because that's exactly what Rahman did to our band. Was like more a mentor, right, in terms of how that whole thing seeded. Post that, we did a lot of studio work, and then 2010 again was first gig. We played at a venue. It was a pub. We had like some 60 people, but whatever we played, it was very different, new genre of music, and people really liked it. We did more shows, and we have played at all kinds of venues without even any performance fees, whatever gear available, right? But then we started, another defining moment of a band is we played in festival and we were identified by MTV. The producers had come. They said, "Hey, what are you guys? Would you like to play in Coke Studio?" I said, "Absolutely, we'll do." It's a big property, Coke Studio, in India and Pakistan. So we played in season 2 in I think the second episode or sixth episode, I forget it. And that's where the foundation was set. And after that, we have done about 700 plus shows across the world, US, everywhere. Only last thing I wanted to talk about is throughout my career, right? While I had a parallel career in terms of, I was largely in tech, and while this journey with Agam was going, I grew in my career, and then I did my own startup. I sold my startup, and then I moved to CRED, and I picked up other functions. So I just want to summarize that if you really have the will to pursue something, you can do and grow and be successful. And I think, I don't think you can do well by not doing well in something else. I think you can do well in both if you really aim to do that. So.
And you mentioned that you did 800 shows in the US, right?
Sorry?
You did 800 shows in the US.
No, not in the US. Overall 800 across the globe, US, UK, Middle East, Southeast Asia. We've pretty much played. We have played in Lagos as well, in Nigeria as well. So.
And I've seen another an amazing video yesterday that Swami was showing me that as part of this tour, he had broken his leg. And you were actually doing this with a broken leg. So talking about passion, I think that was really inspiring. But I want to talk about something that I think all of us wants to have. We have hobbies, we have desires, but what we don't have is a control of time. How do you actually incorporate this and this with your business success? How do you balance this? A lot of us want to do things, but we always excuse ourselves. We don't have time. So how do you balance this? Maybe you can share that.
Yeah, that's probably the hardest part of this. Time management, obviously. I mean, I think it's also the biggest gift I realized. I don't remember the last time I slept beyond 4:30 a.m. So it just becomes circadian rhythm of life where you wake up early because I just don't have any other slot if I have to swim. Like, there's a calendar, right? I have to put 12 hours a week in terms of strength training, swimming, cycling, and running. And I have to reach office by 9:30 max, correct? And I have to get my boys ready for school. So the only time I get is to wake up early, get my 1.5 hour in the morning before the world wakes up, and I do that. But, I think the point I'm saying is when you start showing up for yourself, a lot starts showing up for you. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. And also the second thing I realized was in this journey was, if it's not happening now, it doesn't mean it will never happen. Correct? So that mental framework of resilience to keep going through that plateau, it's a very boring, any skill is very boring. And that's what I keep telling my kids. Whenever you're learning, there's just such a big plateau of learning. For you, I mean, I have to sit on a cycle on a trainer for 3 hours, 4 hours on a weekend, alone, cycling on a trainer inside. It's the most boring job. There's nobody I can look at, nothing. But if I don't do that, I just can't show up. So I think somewhere you can't just chase one high to another. You have to go through that journey, which is extremely boring. So somewhere in your head, you have to start kind of taking this as part of your circadian rhythm of life. You wake up, you do the boring stuff, you go to office, you do the boring stuff, you come back, you do the boring stuff. But then once it becomes part of your life, one day you show up and then you kind of see the results and that's, hey, it's all worth it. I think that in last 4 years, I think I've reached a space where I know exactly how it's going to work out.
Amazing. How do you balance this?
Yeah, I think, I believe that when we say we're not able to find time, actually what we are saying is, this is not my priority, right? I think,
Right.
and I have reflected about it. See, if I'm playing a gig, let's say in Goa or let's say Chennai, I have to wake up at literally 4:30 in the morning, get a flight on a weekend. Like I've finished Friday. Mostly we play in the weekends, and going to airport, 3 hours of waiting for the flight, reaching the venue, then you immediately go for sound check, which takes about 3 hours, and post that you get a small break, then you go and play for 2.5 hours, 3 hours, and next day back to work, right? This is a routine, right? So few things I want to talk about. I think if you look at Pareto of life, what does it really mean to you and what is your priority? I think first laying that out is important. Second is giving up on what is not really important, close to you. And because the time is very fixed, right? You're not going to, it's only 24 hours and you need to sleep for 8 hours. So within that 14, 16 hours, it's important for you to decide what you want to do. And you need to sacrifice what you don't want. And if you don't have good health, and if you sacrifice that, I don't think you can do any of it. So prioritizing health. And if you don't have a family which is supportive, and if you're not investing in relationship, you don't need like hours and hours, but whatever time you spend, quality time on relationship, right? But very intentfully doing, then because you can't go and play and something which when you have relationship problems, you can't do that. You absolutely need to keep it balanced. And third, if you are at work, you can't drop the ball. You got to be the best and you got to help company progress, right? You can't stop that. Life has to go on. It solves for some needs in your Maslow, and you need to be very clear about that need. Because if you don't do that, maybe it creates a void in probably intellectual needs or physical need. It can be any of that. You're going to create a void in your needs, right? It will create a deficiency. Then what's most important is music, because it just puts you in a different journey, probably for me, it's spiritual, right? It's more than that. So what do I have to give up? Watching TV, social life, friends. There's no time for that. It's not like I don't want to do. I would love to do, but there's no time for that.
It's a matter of choice.
It's a choice that you make. And you got to sort of make sure you don't screw up on any of this, right? Because everything has to run in a rhythm. One last thing I want to say is it does not mean there are no problems. It does not mean there is no stress. But I think it's one thing that really helped me in this whole framework is switching on and off at will between music, family, work, on, off. It doesn't matter however big, small it is. You got to switch off. You got to move to a new role. I think building that muscle will really help you to manage time if you're able to prioritize that.
Amazing. So we don't have enough time, but I still have like 39 questions. But you said something important about challenges. And I think that when you do sport and when you do this, there's a lot of things that you invest in physical and emotional. But one area that I find very, very important is the mental health. I run sales. Every deal that I lose, I feel bad about it. But then you have to go up. Every win that I win is a great, happy moment. And then we have to get back to the ground and serve the next partner that we have. So, Nitin, from your experience, how did you cope with the mental strength of that? At the fall downs and the challenges and the difficulties and the balancing, how did you fix your head?
Really hard, and it was an acquired skill. To be honest, I never attempted to build a mental framework around living my life. It was from one milestone to another. It was very transactional. I think there's something absolutely gorgeous about pushing yourself to a limit, because that's when you actually learn who you are truly. And I think for me that Ironman journey actually kind of validated that theoretical concept. And I understood a lot of words which I just use it very loosely, like resilience, dignity. That's a lot of corporate parlance we loosely use while we generally work. But I thought I'd really understood that and what it meant. to chase a goal and kind of go through that plateau of that learning a skill, that's where the mental model kind of starts taking structure in your head. And it's not easy because it's the most boring, because every day you got to start. See, I've tried to take a lot of conscious calls of doing something different every day and trying to break that mental barrier which has accrued over the years, saying, you know what, this is not me, I can't do this. We all struggle with that. I think at some point you got to just go beyond that inhibitions and self-doubt and take that plunge and then show up every day. I think that's how those mental models are built, that if you're going to commit yourself to this journey, so one is the commitment, second is finding the discipline. Motivation has no value. I've realized that. It's all about discipline. So once you set a goal, a lot of people set goals on 1st of January. Very few people are able to do that because they don't have the discipline to go through that journey. I think, and the journey is extremely boring. So the mental model which I built was, I'm going to go through this journey no matter what. I think that's how I've survived few of the crazy stuff I've done, at least in the last 3-4 years.
That's amazing. I could have continued this conversation. I think that what we've learned is that wherever you come from, sports, music, or anything you like, first of all, it's a matter of a decision. Because when you make a decision, you can do things that you never imagined that you can do. And success is basically a definition that you set for yourself. It can be the end result, it can be the milestones towards this, it could be new things that you never dared that you maybe can do. So everybody can take this to their own life and their own business. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Very inspiring. And continue to wonders in your life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.